Councilman Thomas will be here but will be late. Councilman Johnson is here. And I saw Councilperson Gilmore Richardson. Is that anyone else?
Thomas here.
And Councilman Dom is also here. All right, this is a Committee on Public Safety meeting. We will be opening in deference to your time. Ms. Hayward, would you please read the number and title of the resolution?
Resolution number 200052. Resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings regarding the anti-gun violence movement. Hashtag #ManUpPHL.
Thank you. Before I allow the author of the resolution to have some words, I just want to thank
everyone has a story.
this issue to
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Sure, the Schuylkill, every marine biologist in the world would come and try to figure out what the causes of death were, solutions to it, and how we could prevent those kinds of death to those mammals in the future. Over 300 deaths in the city of Philadelphia alone, and another dozen big cities like it happen every year. And this is one of the few times I've seen this many resources in the city of Philadelphia marshaled to address that issue. I would say that the solution to the gun violence is part of a puzzle that we have to put together. Some pieces are here. Solomon, you're a piece of that puzzle. We up here that appropriate budgets are a piece of that puzzle. We just had a new police commissioner come in. She started today. She's here, boots on the ground. She started today, officially. Give her a round of applause because she's in our prayers. But some of those solutions are in this room. Some of the pieces of that puzzle are in this room, and we hope to learn and listen more than we talk in order to get some of those solutions, because the traditional way we've been doing things is not working. So we have to add something new to our tool belt, and we hope to hear it tonight. With that, I'd like to recognize Councilperson Green. I'm gonna get it right.
Thank you, Chair Jones. It's a pleasure to be here.
Everyone has a story.
Having this hearing.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
As a member of City Council, and I thought it was important to have this conversation because I had a chance to attend the kickoff event that Solomon had at Community College of Philadelphia, and wanted to continue this conversation because it's not there's no one way to address this issue. It's not a top-down approach. We have to go from top down and bottom up at the same time. And so having this type of conversation in the community and having input and voices from people from around the city of Philadelphia to talk about this issue and to learn some of the things that ManUpPHL has been working on helps inform us as members of the Public Safety Committee, but also members of City Council. The mayor will be giving his budget address in a few weeks, and we'll be going through the budget process. So getting information about how we can address and stem violence in our city is important. As our chair said, we have a new police commissioner. Unfortunately, she was not able to attend tonight. She was invited, but it helps better inform us as we go through the budget process to make sure that we can allocate resources to really address this issue. Other cities like Chicago and New York, New Orleans and Oakland, they've been taking an approach of you really focus on community grassroots initiatives to stem the violence in their cities. We can't continue to do the same things we've been doing in the past. We got to look at new ideas and new ways to communicate between elected officials and people in the community about these issues and have a cooperative dialogue so we can all work together. I can't solve the problem by myself. We can't solve the problem by ourselves, but collectively we can move this issue forward using some of the lessons that people have been working on this issue for a number of years, as well as some new ideas, so we can move the entire city forward in a way that does not continue to have the violence.
Everyone has a story.
So thank you.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Where's she at? Thank you for taking time to come out. All right. So with that, are any other? Hmm? Rebecca Reinhardt is here? Where are you? She counts the money. Make sure we count it right. There she is. Give her a round of applause, please. Dwayne? So you're going to see, wave your hands. Where you at? Okay. Anybody who wants to speak signs up with Dwayne. In addition to the 11 people that we have scheduled to testify. All right, with that, any other comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, Ms. Hayward, can you read the first group to testify?
Solomon Jones, Stanley Crawford, Michael Smokey Wilson, and Jasmine Slay.
Could you come up to, two of you can come up at a time. So, Solomon. You can give him a round of applause, please. The reason we are here tonight. Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Solomon Jones, and I am pleased to be here this evening. I am Executive Director of Man Up PHL, a community organization that works to curtail gun violence.
Everyone has a story.
Members of council,
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
15-year-old boy who was shot in the head in South Philadelphia. He was a friend of my son. And I watched my son grieve, and I watched his classmates grieve, and I watched his teachers grieve, and I grieved, and I was angry, and I was hurt. And I felt like we had to do something, because as I looked at that boy in that casket, I realized that that boy could have been my son. Just weeks after I decided that I would call on the community to do something about the senseless violence that was taking our children and numbing our senses and killing our compassion, I learned that another 16-year-old boy had shot 5 fellow students at a high school in California. And it was interesting because 2 of those students died. They were just 16 and 14 years old. Now, my heart went out to the families of those children, and my prayers were with that community because I knew it would take time for that wound to heal. But in a city like Santa Clarita, California, where Saugus High School is located, they have resources to help them with that kind of healing. Resources we simply don't have here in Philadelphia. Santa Clarita is a city that's 70% white. The average home is valued at $460,000. There's no shortage of help for those who need it. There's no shortage of sympathy for those who suffer. Our allies stood up beside us. Our representatives stood up beside us, and we began to get to work. Since November, groups of men and women have been meeting in 4 locations all over the city, looking to help brothers find alternatives to gun violence, and it hasn't always been easy. We've learned that it's easier to find people who want to offer help than it is to bring in those who need the help. We've learned that there are those who will come alongside just to see if you're a threat to them. We've learned that there are those who claim to share your agenda when their only agenda is themselves. But we've also learned that the black community is a loving and caring and giving place. We've learned that there are more of us who want peace than those who want violence. We've learned that we can change lives if we work together. And so we've set out to do that. First, by laying a foundation of leaders who are empowered to work for the benefit of our community. We're organized under the Urban Affairs Coalition. And our advisory board consists of Chairman Brian Ellis of Drexel University's LeBeau School of Business, Secretary Jeff Brown, owner of Brown's Family ShopRights, and Treasurer Akbar Hassan, an accountant and financial advisor. Our tech coordinator is Joel Wilson of Tech Core 2 and 100 Black Men. Our volunteer coordinator is Jasmine Slay. I coordinate the mentoring while 4 dynamic brothers lead our weekly sessions at each site. We've learned along the way that we have to reach out to both inside and outside the system to be effective. So we've supported neighborhood rallies with the Black
Everyone has a story.
We've referred young men to 100 Black Men. We've
changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
We've met with the First Judicial District, from the supervising judge to the leaders of probation and parole. And while we're currently in a review process with them, we've been assured that they're going to send us referrals too. See, we got to get straight to the men that are doing this, straight to the men who are threats to our community, straight to the men who are threats to themselves. And so we'll work with anybody we have to get to those men and change their lives. We've heard from brothers inside the jails who want to work with us to end the violence. And we're preparing to partner with them too to do just that. Because our mission is a simple one: to step into the lives of the men who are statistically most likely to be victims or perpetrators of gun violence in our city, and to provide them with the mentoring, accountability, resources, and consistency they require to change their lives and make our communities safe. No matter where those men are, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from, we are determined to help them change. Because that is at the core of our belief. People can change, but they have to have a reason to do it. They have to have a desire to do it. And more often than not, they have to have help to do it. We've assembled a list of resources to help. We've collected data on other organizations that help. We've assembled a 12-week curriculum that's designed to do one thing: help. I'm not under any illusion that we could somehow make somebody change if they don't want to. But I believe in this work because my own life has changed. I've gone from homelessness and drug addiction to community leadership and activism.
Everyone has a story. My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
A solution. Now that change has meant that I could marry a woman and take care of her. That change has meant that I could father children and be there for them. It's meant that I could work and pay taxes, save and invest, mentor and guide, and give to the community I love. Imagine what would happen if we believed that that was possible for the men we've written off. If we could show a brother how to get a job and keep it, how to love and protect his woman, how to raise and nurture his children, how to put down the gun, pick up himself, and be a man. We're doing it. We're doing it. Week by week, site by site, man by man, but we can't do it alone. That's why we're asking our city. That's why we're asking you. That's why we're asking council and the mayor and the controller and the sheriff and the senator and anybody else who's in here to come and walk along beside us as we make this thing work. We're asking for assistance, for technical help, for political support. We believed in you enough to put you in these positions. Now believe in us enough to put us in the position to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it the will of the committee that we can ask questions individually now? Or, okay. So I am the chair. You're right. So I'm intrigued by your 12-week.
Everyone has a story.
Course. Can you elaborate?
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Then we would have people going in circles. So we're learning as we go. And I met with our mentoring coordinators over the course of the last week, and we decided that this 12-week curriculum would consist of this. Why are we here? And we want people to know that we're volunteering to do this, that ain't nobody getting paid. We're not here to have you sign a sheet, and every time you put your name on the sheet, we get paid. It's not about that. We want them to know that we are here because we want them to change their lives. Period. So that's the first week. The second week is really about criminal justice, and it is about letting them know how someone else got out of the criminal justice system. What we found is that the best way for us to get a steady stream of people is for us to get people referred to us pre-trial, which is why we went to the Defenders Association, why we're working with the First Judicial District. Our only condition for them was this, that you don't put nobody in jail because they didn't come to see us. We don't want to be any part of putting people in jail. There's enough of that. We want to be a carrot and not a stick. So that's the second week. Having someone present to them how they got out of the criminal justice system so that they can know how they can get out as well. Week 3 is character building, because you need character. We can help you get a job. You need character to keep it, right? So that's the third week. Week 4 is goal setting. What is it that you want to do with your life? What are your goals? Write them down, write the vision, make it plain, and let's make it happen. Week 5 is conflict resolution, because many people get into gun violence.
Everyone has a story.
And they don't know how to handle it.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Goal setting. You've learned about how somebody else got out of the criminal justice system. Well, now you're ready to actually work and be serious about it, right? So job readiness is week 6. Week 7 is financial literacy. Week 8 is mental health, because what we are dealing with in our community is people who are dealing with mental health issues and don't know it. We have to deal with the trauma that our people are dealing with. Week 9 is physical health, because you ain't gonna be here if you keep eating all that chicken. Week 10 is life skills. How do you live on your own? How do you take care of yourself and a family? What are the things that you need to do in day-to-day life in order to succeed? Week 11 is education, dealing with people who don't have high school diplomas. As our former DA told me, most of the people who get involved in gun violence, either as perpetrators or as victims, are high school dropouts. That's the common denominator more than race. It's the fact that they don't have education. And then week 12 is parenting, because many of us have children and we want to be fathers, but we don't know how. Nobody's ever shown us how. And so we want to be able to do that. That is the 12-week curriculum. And we one of the things that we did in order to make sure that we could continually teach that curriculum was take stock of what we had in terms of our mentors. Who does what? What is your profession? What is the thing that you are expert in, so that we can assign you to a week of teaching this particular
Everyone has a story. My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a a secret in my heart? Could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
I don't have ID. I don't have a driver's license. I can't get to work. I don't have car fare.
Yeah.
How are you addressing that?
Well, what we're hoping is that we can get the resources to be able to give people a key card every week that they come. We want to be able to do that so that they can get to our mentoring and get to work. Because a brother can get a job and can't get to work. I'm glad you asked the ID question because one of the first people we helped was a brother named Atif in South Philadelphia. Atif came in and one of the sisters dragged him in because he would always be outside of that store in South Philadelphia. And when we met, one of the sisters, Diane from South Philly, she might be here, went out and dragged him in. Right? Yeah, she here. Yeah, she here. So she went out and dragged him in. Atif needed ID. And one of our mentors, Jelani, went and paid for his ID, went with him to pick up his ID, made sure that he got his ID, and met with his family, and now we are working with him on next steps after that.
So, as you run into these obstacles,
Yeah.
if you could provide us those kinds of issues that we can look for sources of relief for that, that would be helpful. Councilwoman, councilperson, Guardian, or you?
I'll defer.
Defer, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you so much for your testimony and for the work that you're doing.
You're welcome.
I was wondering if you could tell us how many men you've helped to date, what their average ages are, or what the average age is. And I was also wondering if you could summarize what, if there are needs that have been...
Everyone has a story.
So
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian
and
Empire.
that's because we're in
With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
found is that you have parents who are hurting, and so we want to deal with men. They bring their children, and if they bring their children, that's why we'll talk to their children, but you got to stay there with them. You know what I mean? Don't be coming and, this ain't no. So we have dealt with some young men who are teenagers. We have dealt with men who are anywhere from 20 to 35 or so is the age of the men that I've encountered as I've gone around to the different sites. As far as the issues that are most prevalent with them, most of them will tell you, look, I just need a job. But when you dig a little deeper, what you find is that there are some other issues going on. I'll give you a particular case. A man who was in his late 30s, was living with a female relative, had 4 children, and had not worked for a year and a half. I just need a job. Okay, well, when was your last job? A year and a half ago. Okay, why is it that you haven't, and you have to drill down and figure out what the issue is. But one of the things that I want to impress upon this committee tonight is that we have to have a reason for these men to come back.
Yes.
We can get them there the first time, right? And we can reach out to them, we can talk to them, but we have to have a reason for these men to come back. For that, we're going to need resources. It's one of the things that we found is that we can call you, we can love you, we can hug you, we can encourage you.
Everyone has a story.
You know what? If you don't have
My
transportation,
ordinary
you're
life
back.
changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Like men up that also recognize that are here today.
Yes.
Mothers in Charge. I know Bilal Qayyum is here, and other organizations who've been doing this grassroots work. Some new like yourself, and others have been doing it for a long time. And the challenge has historically been the resources to maintain and keep doing what they need to do.
Right.
And we haven't really made that investment. And that's why I'm going to get that sense from you. What are the resources so we can try to marshal that through this budget process, not only for groups like Man Up, but also other groups who have been doing this work either recently or for some time.
That's right. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did, and I have to credit Bilal Qayyum for his wisdom, because he was one of the people that I talked to as we were trying to put this together, because I knew that he had been on the front lines working on this issue for years. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was to promote the work of other groups, knowing that we don't have all the answers, right? Knowing that we are not some magic place where people come and suddenly they're healed and changed, right? And so we support the work of other community organizations like the Father's Day Rally Committee, like Anton Moore and Unity in the Community in South Philadelphia, like the organizations that are working throughout the city to deal with these issues of violence. And so one of the things we did, and you know because you were there that first night, so was Senator Williams, was that we collected through our database everyone's name and affiliation and all of the agencies that were represented there.
Everyone has a story.
Of agencies that are doing this work.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Know what some other groups are doing to address those issues. And so one of the things that I've been very pleased in reference to what Man Up PHL has been doing is trying to lift up other groups.
Yeah.
So the concept of bringing some type of convening of various groups together just to network and dialogue in reference to, you talk about Father's Day Rally Committee. They've been doing this for some time. Mothers in Charge, Man Up PHL, other organizations. Just having the ability to come together on a semi-regular basis or annual basis just to share information, because I think they can help promote a lot of the organizations, because from what I've seen, some people have been doing this in a little small way or a big way, and they feel they don't have the resources of other people that are doing the same thing, where others are doing it, but they just need some more support. So I think the city could help convene that information, convene people together so people can share information, because you're busy doing your own Word, you're doing this volunteer. Dr. Height, she's doing, and Dr. Spice doing what she's doing. But the convening could possibly come from the city side to help you kind of come together and communicate better about resources and sharing information, so you're not reinventing the wheel.
I think that's a key. But I think the other thing, and this is what I was alluding to in talking with Bilal, is that we get caught up in fighting over money. I mean, I'm just going, I might as well just tell the truth. That's what I do, right? We get caught up in fighting over money. So we're fighting for crumbs, right? Rather than figuring out a way to share the whole cake, right? So that we can actually work to the benefit of our community. One of the advantages that I have is that because of the work I do, I have the
Everyone has a story.
And I want to use
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
to work together, but we have to remember that we can't be fighting over crumbs, because then you ain't helping nobody.
Right. And just one last point, because I think there's definitely other members of council that want to ask questions. I believe that fighting over crumbs has been some of the issues we've had for a number of years.
Yep.
Because it's a limited amount of resources,
Right.
when it should be a much larger amount of resources. And then some people take the perspective where you're taking my money because I've been doing this for umpteen number of years, or your new group. So getting a sense of what each organization needs, and then trying to grow that pie, so you're not going after each other's money, you're going after dollars you need for you to do what you need to do, versus another organization which may need more or less money because they have a different perspective and focus than you do.
Yeah,
So.
I agree wholeheartedly. And the other thing I'll say is this, and Jasmine Schley will be up a little bit later on, but one of the things that we have been able to do is to build a foundation that we could build upon. And so we have an advisory board that has experience in some of this work. You alluded to that, Councilman, with Jeff Brown, right? And has some academic prowess and some financial literacy. And so we can build on that. We have a volunteer coordinator who is experienced at coordinating people to work together. And one of the things that we've done is we've decided on a multi-pronged fundraising strategy. And I would suggest this to any group that really wants to do work in our community, that you do not get caught up in government money, right? That's your only source of income. You know what I'm like? No.
Everyone has
we
a
can
story.
raise our own money. Leon Sullivan raised $10
My
at a
ordinary
time.
life changed
the world.
forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
So we have the money. The question is, what do we want to do with it? So we have a multi-pronged fundraising strategy where we will raise money from the community. We will raise money from certainly government entities and from foundations and other organizations. And we will use that money to the benefit of the people that we serve. I never need a dime. I'm good. I've been homeless. I'm good. I got a house. I'm good. I got a couple. I'm good. You know what I mean? So we want to serve our people to make sure that they get the resources that they need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. I want to acknowledge the presence of Councilperson Brooks and Councilperson Thomas, who have joined us today. And I think Kenyatta Johnson is next.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Solomon, and thank you for your leadership on this topic. I want to go back to the curriculum regarding mental health. And I've been doing this work over 20 years, and one thing I recognize amongst our young people who are involved in a lot of these shootings is the issue around self-medication.
Mm-hmm.
Most young people take Perk 30s, Percocets, some smoke wet as a way to cope with life, but a lot of times some of these homicides happen while they are high.
Mm-hmm.
And so are we working with organizations such as Community Behavioral Health from the mental health standpoint on the city side, and how can we, if not, get them to the table to help you from that aspect? And also the second part is how we address
Everyone has a story.
amongst our young people.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Oftentimes we talk about the gang war era, right? But this is the gun war era. Before it was fighting and they had zip guns. But when I grew up, it was revolvers, and now it's automatics on a regular basis where lives are just being taken immediately. And so can you just talk more about your approach to the mental health standpoint, any ways that we could be supportive on the city side? And I want to go back to the part about the funding, right?
Yes.
We had a $439 million surplus this last cycle. So there's no reason in the world why, to be quite frank, if we stick together as council members, that any group should be fighting amongst themselves for support. And so that's something that should be noted for the record. And as somebody mentioned before, one of my elders, he said this is probably the first time in history we have a majority African-American group of elected officials, and we're predominantly African-American city. And so no one should be fighting for any resources. We just want to make sure that there's accountability and obviously the things that go along with supporting organizations. And so hopefully this budget process will be much different than what we've seen in the past. But talk about the mental health component of your curriculum and how we can be supportive in terms of helping our young people.
Well, I think that one of the things that we want to make sure that we do is bring experts to the table. And so to the extent that community behavioral health can send us experts who can talk about how you heal from trauma, we would be very receptive to that. And so when I talk about resources, it's not just financial, it's expertise.
Everyone
it's
has a story.
It's things that are tangible.
My
that
ordinary
can help, our men
life changed forever
really
when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Very strong, robust program at Children's Hospital as well as Temple. And so we will, after we do a follow-up, and I'll make sure that we'll make those resources available to you and your team as y'all move forward, strictly around mental health.
Excellent.
Trauma.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilperson Thomas next. Does anybody else need to be? Remember, I do not have the lights.
Thank you to the chairman for allowing me to speak. Of course, Solomon, thank you for all the work you're doing, as well as all the partnering organizations. And I apologize for being late today. But and if you address this, I apologize for that too. But my colleagues know, and a lot of folks who know me know, that I'm very passionate about summer and after school programming. I'm specifically thinking about summer programming for those teenage boys. I'm curious to know what organizations involved in the Man Up Coalition will be in position to receive young people, specifically teenagers, as a site assignment, right? So I'm thinking specifically about young men who have experienced, maybe something good, maybe something not so good, but they need that level of male mentorship. And we want to pay them, right, in the summertime for them to be mentors. So who in the Man Up Network is thinking about summer programming, summer sites and opportunities for young people who complete that PYN application to be able to be shipped to their specific site so they can get mentored through the great coalition and through the work that's already being done?
Well, there are a couple of organizations that immediately come to mind. One of them is 100 Black Men, which is run by Joel Wilson, who is our tech coordinator, and runs our West Philadelphia site. And also Tech Core 2, which deals with helping young people learn coding and pays them to do that.
Everyone has a story.
And so
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Who might have experienced something bad. There's a brother named Taj Murdoch, who was part of our network, who was doing wonderful work with young men who have experienced all kinds of things. I had the pleasure of being at a meeting, one of our Man Up PHL meetings, where Brother Taj was sharing about a young man who had lost his father to gun violence. And Taj just took him to the movies and just spent some time with him and just let him know that somebody cared. Like, sometimes it's not even about a program or a curriculum or any of that. Sometimes it's just like, yo, I care. And so he would be somebody I would recommend also for those younger people. And also Big Brothers Big Sisters of Philadelphia, who trained about 30 of our mentors. Because again, we want to make sure that we are trained to do the work that we do. And so they were able to do that through Marcus Allen and his network. We did a training with about 30 of our mentors with them and plan to do continuing education in that regard. Yep.
Thank you, Councilperson Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also had a question in reference to technology. You talked about Joel Wilson, and I know you're using a website. And how are you bringing some of these other organizations together and using technology as a way to connect with young men who need some of this mentorship?
Well, I think Joel will speak to some of that a little bit later on, but I know one of the things that we did initially was we put together a band network, BAND. Band is available to anybody. You can put together a group of people online and use it almost like a mini Facebook, where you can communicate directly with
Everyone has a story.
very quickly.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
By using that information there. The other thing that we do, we use Eventbrite for all of our events so that we collect people's data and we are able to then convene them quickly if we need to bring them together for something else.
And just a follow-up, what do you see as the next steps? Because one of the challenges that we have is that in the wintertime things slow down, but in the summertime things heat up.
Yeah.
And we're already in a situation in the early part of 2020 where we're on a trajectory that's much more violent than even last year and more violent than the year before that.
Right.
So what do you see as the next steps going into the summer and trying to grow up on that?
Well, sticking with that technological theme, Brian Ellis, who is our board chair, is working with some young brothers at Drexel and beyond to put together a website where people can go in order to quickly access our services and where we can collect data on what we do. And so we are looking to build information in order to use that to our advantage. I think one of the things that has been missing from some of the work that has been done previously is that technological aspect and using technology to our advantage. There's no way in the world that the best thing we could do on Twitter is cuss each other out. You understand? I think that we need to use that technology to our advantage and for the good of our people, and we are building a website to be able to do that. The other thing I'll say is this, that as we implement our curriculum and as we work with other organizations, that will give us the opportunity to build toward what we know we need to have in place by this summer. What I envision is that we will be bringing
Everyone has a story.
and then turning them into mentors.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
You had the funds in hand tomorrow that you need to bring Man Up PHL to where you want it to be. What would it look like as a fully funded initiative, and what's your vision for that?
My vision is that we train brothers to be men. And what that means is that you're not just a male, right? You don't just have the parts. That you actually are taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and you are an asset to your community. What I envision is us training men to be able to get jobs and keep them, to be able to go back and mentor other men, to be able to go on field trips in these communities and actually reach out door to door, block by block, and impact people in the neighborhoods that are dealing with this violence. I envision us doing some of the work and supporting some of the work that some of these other organizations that we partner with do, supporting in a big way the work of the Black Male Community Coalition of Philadelphia and Stanley Crawford, supporting in a big way the work of the Black Male Engagement, Black Men Engaging Neighborhoods, going into neighborhoods with resources, not just with, bullhorn, but going in with resources like, brother, I got a job for you right now. If you get off the corner right now, I got a job right now. And I got somebody that's going to walk beside you to help you keep that job. I envision us having hundreds of men who are trained to mentor other men in how to take care of themselves and their families, because I know that if we can change one man's life, we change everything around him. We change the outcomes for his woman.
Everyone has a story.
For his children, for his block, for his neighborhood.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Where are you at, Senator? All right. Thank you for coming out. And Omar Sabir, our commissioner, is here. Where are you? There we go. All right. Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Solomon, for your work you're doing.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to mention to you that starting in March, supporting through the free library, we're going to be teaching in 10 different branches financial literacy for adults in the evening. And if any of the people in Man Up want to attend those classes, I'm happy to work with you on that program.
Okay.
The goal is a pilot, and by the way, people here can sign up too. I don't have the exact branches, but we can get you the information. The goal is to start in 10 branches teaching financial literacy over a 6-week period and to expand it to all 51 branches. But I think I think there's two issues. I think there's the adults that are 18 and up, and then there's the children. And I still believe, and my colleagues are going to know what I'm going to say now, that I think, and we all supported a resolution we put forward, calling upon 4 things for our school system: teaching, financial literacy, pre-K to 12th grade; teaching technology, pre-K to 12th grade; teaching entrepreneurship, 7th to 12th grade; and allowing students, this is very important I think, the opportunity from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, work 1 day a week, go to school for 4 days, get paid, and get credit.
I like it. I love it. Yes.
So, first and foremost, I want to thank you again.
You're welcome.
I'm not sincerely thank you again because I haven't felt this optimistic since the Million Man March.
Everyone has a story.
I haven't felt even
My
then
ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Hearing none, thank you again for your testimony. Miss Hayward, would you go ahead, get it out. Miss Hayward, would you please read the names of the next group to testify?
Stanley Crawford, Michael Smokey Wilson, and Jasmine Slay.
Thank you for your patience. Please come up. Remember to say your name officially for the record. This is being recorded. And then begin your testimony. Thank you for coming. So remember, Dwayne is over there for people who would like to testify. They must sign up. Mr. Crawford. Welcome. Good evening.
How you doing?
I am outstanding.
That's good. That's good. My name is Jasmine Schley, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for Man Up PHL. What originally got me interested, even before I started with the volunteer coordinator position in January, was just hearing the excitement and the energy and seeing that act of power that was 300, 400 men coming together to take action on an issue that primarily impacts black men and black communities. And so, for me, as a black woman, you're so used to
Everyone has a story. My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
And the first thing that came to my mind was Ella Baker and all the work that she and women behind the scenes were doing to support the work of not just black men, but just to support the work of the community. And so when Solomon asked me to do the volunteer coordinator position, am I not speaking into the mic? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So when Solomon asked me to do the volunteer coordinator position, for me it was an honor, continuing that legacy of black women supporting the work to empower and strengthen our communities. And it was also an act of passion for me, because organizing people to expand access to opportunities and improve quality of life, that's really something that's deeply, deeply passionate, deeply important to me. So as I'm approaching this volunteer coordinator position, passion is at the center of everything that we're doing. And so when I think about throughout history, the people who have changed the world, be it for good or for bad, they've been driven by passion. And so when I think about passion, Councilman Thomas, you were talking about the after-school programs, and I know that you have a foundation, and I'm just imagining how you felt when you were working on that and putting that together, that passion that probably kept you up at night, thinking about creative solutions to ideas and just making you relentless. Well, that's that passion that our volunteers have and that everyone who's involved in this movement and in this organization bring to the table. And that's that passion.
Everyone has a story.
To change the world and to change the city.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
Progress and into tangible results.
Okay.
So our approach is with that in mind. We want to harness that energy, harness that power to change the world. Let's direct it at this issue. So our approach focuses on providing crystal clear goals. We have about 6 volunteer teams. So we want to provide crystal clear goals to each team so that everybody involved, they know which direction that they should be marching in. We also want to provide ongoing training and development. I think about it as in terms of skills versus will. We have so much will and so much desire and so much passion to make an impact on this issue. You can't pay for that. You can't teach it. But now you can teach the skills needed to be successful. And so that's what we want to do for all of our volunteers. We want to make sure that they have the training to execute on what we're asking them to do. So we have monthly meetings. We had our first one in January, but at those meetings, we're going to have ongoing training and development for all of our volunteers. So one of the things that we focused on at our last session was keys for running productive meetings. I know you all have been in a million different meetings, and being able to successfully take the conversation from that meeting and translate it into action, we want all of our volunteers to be able to do that successfully. Lastly, a regular touch base, regular points of contact is very important to make sure that our volunteers have the support in between those monthly contacts to execute on those goals. So we can't just ask them to go raise $50,000 and come back to me in 2 months when it's done. We're not doing that. We're not going to leave our volunteers. We want to walk with them every step of the way.
Everyone has a story. My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
A couple of specific areas with regards to volunteers and our volunteer effort. Any training that can be provided to any professional training in terms of project management, leadership, communication skills, trauma-informed care, any sort of technical skills, any professional training that can be provided to us, to our volunteers, will be incredibly helpful. Like I said, we're already working to provide training monthly, but we're always open to additional resources. Also, any existing databases, so Solomon mentioned that we have a resource list that we're starting with, but any existing resource maps or databases that you have access to, if we could access those in any organizations like ours, because we're not just, like Solomon mentioned, this is about collaboration. We're not just out here saying, hey, it's man up or nothing. So any databases or resources that our organization or any other organization can tap into to kind of map out where should we be directing people, that would be incredibly, incredibly helpful. With that, I will open it up for any questions if you would like further information.
So, Councilperson Green, and who else? Anyone else? Okay, and then Councilperson Gilmore. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Schley, thank you for your passion and your energy in this issue. When you talked about resource and professional development, a good friend of mine, Suleiman Rahman, started Diverse Boards, which takes professionals from an African-American, Latino perspective and helps train them to do board service. So for Man Up.
Everyone has a story.
That could be an opportunity where
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
nonprofit leaders, and they have a new program with leaders of color, their executive directors, and their board to try to help train and develop that next generation of leaders. So that's another organization that has resources and information that can be helpful for the volunteers, not only for Man Up, but for some of the other organizations that are represented here to get that additional professional training about meetings, the resource development opportunity that could be helpful.
Got it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilperson Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jasmine, for your passion, for your energy, and for your collaborative approach in working with Man Up PHL, and to Solomon and all of you that are here. I was really encouraged to learn in your testimony that you have fiscal sponsorship through the Urban Affairs Coalition, and just wanted to know if you intend to develop partnerships with local universities to help you with the training for volunteers and or the Society for Human Resource Management.
I don't know if that's something we've looked into yet, but that's absolutely something we would want to pursue. Solomon, do you have anything to add to that? Brian Ellis. Right, our board chair is from Drexel. Brian Ellis.
Okay. Councilperson, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
So I'm still optimistic, and more so now because I
Yes.
heard you testify. All right? Keep on doing it. Mr. Crawford, state your name for the record, and please begin your testimony.
My name is Stanley Crawford, and I'd like to thank Man Up under the leadership of Solomon Jones for this opportunity to speak on
Everyone
topics
has a story.
that we're talking about.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as
Here's
this?
why I put my son picture on the front of that, because I want you guys to know what he looked like, and I want you guys to know that what we're dealing with is not just a soundbite on TV. That picture you looking at right there is the son that I loved. He loved me, and I loved him. I raised him from the age of 3 as a single father, and to the age of 35 when violence took him off this planet. My son had 5 children that won't have experience of a loving and caring father. My son was killed on September the 8th, 2018 at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. He was going to his sister's house. They ambushed him and waiting for him, shot him once in the right temple, once in the right chin, and once in the chest. When I get to the house, my son's blood, now that I know his brain was on the pavement. So I'm not here philosophically. I'm not here trying to impress nobody. I'm not here for but one reason, because I have a personal experience and a personal investment in stopping this murder and mayhem that we as citizens of the Philadelphia have experienced. And I say this in all honesty. Listen, I was guilty of what I'm saying we need to do. I sat on the couch and watched Channel 6, Channel 10, Channel 3 News and heard about somebody getting killed and just stopped.
Everyone has a story. My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
So when I say what we're doing here, it ain't no joke until it knock on your door. And I know I'm not the only one in this room who have experienced the murder of their loved ones. I know that. But I know how it feels to miss somebody every single day, man. I can barely look at my son's picture for over 30 seconds. I had to turn it away to protect myself, man. So I'm here, because I know if we don't get together and work together in an honest, not no BS, in an honest decision, an honest way of working together, we are all going to be held responsible for the next murder that take place because we didn't do what we supposed to do. Now listen, I have a lot. Listen, I could have, and I tell this all honesty, I could be in a fetus position right now. I could go out right now and get some revenge if that's what I wanted to do. Okay? But something put it on my spirit, man, that I did not want another family, if possible, to have this experience. So when God put it on my spirit to do something, I put a call out. And when I put the call out, I could say at least 70, 80 brothers came to the call out. And we created. And we created the Black Male Community Council of Philadelphia. We met for 5 months straight. Will the Black Male Council please stand up, man? This is the brothers that work. These is the brothers that
Everyone
work
has a story.
consistently, and we out there in the
My
streets trying to make
ordinary
a
life
difference.
changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire.
We the black
With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
consistently. Our motto is boots on the ground, all hands on deck, and consistency. Because a lot of times what happened after a murder or after this stuff, we go back into our comfort zone and lead right out there to the mayhem. So what am I saying? Sometimes I don't know if people want to invite me to places like this. I question that because sometimes what I'm saying to the public is what the public might not understand. Now I passed out a pamphlet and it's around unsolved murders. Now this is stuff that I learned since the murder of my son that I did not know, that now I know that we need to focus on, as well as all of these other things we're focusing on, because the year that my son got murdered, 60% of them murders went unsolved. It was 351 murders in the city of Philadelphia in 2018. If 60% of them went unsolved, you know how many murderers we still got walking our streets. I also did some other research and I found out that from 2007 to 2017, there was 3,037 murders in the city of Philadelphia. 45% of them went unsolved. Then I did some more research and I found out that over a period of time in America itself, 200,000 unsolved murders in the last 50 years. But what is not being considered in that equation is this. You got thousands of people that's suffering the loss of their loved ones, but also suffering the nonchalantness within law enforcement, especially when it comes to black people. See, if I go out here and I kill a white person today,
Everyone has a story.
Before the sunrise, I'm in penitentiary.
My ordinary life changed forever when I was taken through the palace doors of the great Persian Empire. With a secret in my heart, could I find the courage to risk it all and believe that I was made for such a time as this?
It depends on the enthusiasm of the homicide detective. They say after 1 year, my son been murdered 17 months. 17 months. And to this day, nobody's been arrested for his murder. The longer it goes, the lesser the chances it's gonna be. So I'm here, and I thank Solomon for inviting me, and we work together with Solomon because at the end of the day, we all have to work together because there's no big eyes and little U's in this fight. And if we work together, we can come up with practical and applicable strategies. And if we come up with practical and applicable strategies that we all agree in and put that time and energy, and if it's needed money in it, we the ones that can solve it. Listen, I always say this, ain't nobody coming to our rescue. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they don't have the brother just got killed out South Philly. He's now 31 years old. Now, you blow the balloons and stuff like that, but we got to find a way to work together as black people to solve our problem. Because at the end of the day, man, if we don't, we gonna be the ones, listen, even if they solve my son's murder, I got to still keep working, man, because of what I know. I cannot sleep and not be out here helping somebody else that I know need this help, man. So what we do as the Black Male Community Council, because I'd be negligent if I didn't give the brothers their props for the sincereness that they demonstrate in reference to the work that we're doing. I also have to give Rochelle Bilal. Rochelle Bilal was the Guardian Civil League president, and she's a good friend of mine. And when I went to Rochelle Bilal, she says to me, go ahead and we could use the Guardian. We've been using the Guardian, and she's been in our corner ever since. And there's other ones, but at the end of the day, when you have people like that, man, that say, okay, let's work together, let's do that. And she's been one of our champions. Also, Solomon Jones is one of our champions. But the championness got to come from us, man. You guys up there, you guys have the power to do what y'all guys do. But if this meeting go and all we get is polite vaporing and smoke blowing up our rear, it's just another one of them meetings, man.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. So before I recognize Councilman Johnson, Brother Crawford, one of our mutual friends, I won't say his name, you know what I'm talking about, lost not one, not two, but now 3 sons to gun violence.
His grandson.
His grandson, I'm sorry. All right? And so this is real. What is disturbing to me is something that you brought to my attention, and now we are having hearings on unsolved murders. Now, now wait a minute, it gets worse. Out of the 1,300 shootings, unsolved shootings. And so what criminologists know, that if I get away with murder the first time, I am more than likely to commit it the second time, third time. I know what I know. And so we have one of the pieces of the puzzle. Commissioner Outlaw is here, and but we gotta hold her to a high standard about our lives do matter, in particular when it comes to us, on us. And we, you know, one of the things I appreciate, Salma, was this wasn't just one-sided, because we hear a lot of the issues of justice reform, and I'm for that. You can check my card, you know what I mean? I'm there since the House of Emoji. But here we go. I know members up here have experienced gun violence. I was 16 years old walking on Upland Way, and somebody shot into the crowd and killed the person I was with. So this is not academic. This is for real. We live with this trauma every day. So we have to hold all of our pieces to that puzzle accountable, including us.
Well, one thing I like to say is this. Listen, I'm not joking. I think we need, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to create the organization of unsolved murder family victims, so we can start speaking for our loved ones themselves. Because no one's coming to our rescue, and I realized after this here, man, that if we the family members don't come together and create an organization that we can advocate for our loved ones ourselves, it ain't gonna get done. So we have to create that organization of Unsolved Murder Family Victims Organization. And with that, we can start to advocating for our loved ones beyond just an individual. We could do it as a group, and we're gonna start getting some prestigious results.
So 100 people died of the coronavirus, and the whole world is mobilized to deal with that death. We experience lead poisoning 300 times a year. Somebody, us, man up. We need to take care of ourselves. Councilperson Johnson.
Thank you. I just wanted to, just commend you, Mr. Crawford, for your courage in carrying on the legacy and on behalf of your son in fighting this particular issue. You know, I got involved in this whole movement around gun violence because I lost a cousin to gun violence, had a chance with family members to retaliate and didn't, and decided to start my own organization, Peace Not Guns, as a way for me to cope with losing a loved one, because taking another life is not going to bring them back to life. But I wanted to also just acknowledge, because this issue of unsolved murders is a very real issue. in the homicide clearance rate here in the city of Philadelphia. A woman who had brought this to my attention, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge her, Ms. Dorothy. I call her the godmother of the movement, Ms. Dorothy Spike Johnson from Mothers in Charge. Yeah. And a woman named Alita Garcia, the National Homicide Justice Alliance. And it's critical that we begin to make sure that we've already started the process of working with leaders of the homicide unit, also Commissioner Ross, when he was the commissioner, around this particular issue of unsolved murders and the clearance rate. I think when I started the special committee on gun violence, we were somewhere around maybe 32%. Now we're up to close 48%. So we are focusing on it, but I'll follow what you and have an off-the-record conversation on how we can get you involved in it. But I also want to say something, have a frank conversation to like just us as a community. Most of the homicides that I deal with, whether it's in South Philadelphia or Southwest Philadelphia, right? We know about the conflicts before the young men pick up the guns. So that we got to get to the point where when you hear that back and forth social media argument, when you hear the neighborhood conversations about this corner and that corner, or having some type of arguments, right? We got to also, right, get to the point where mothers are calling other mothers and saying, wait a minute, your son carrying a gun and your son is about to blow my son's brains out, right? From an intervention standpoint, and the fathers have to do the same thing as well. And we go up to Phoenix, right, prison, and we talk to the lifers and so forth as a way to hopefully have an influence on the young men who are shooting at one another in the streets. But a very critical part of this, right? Let's take the resources out of it. Let's just talk about us as a people. Because let me tell you where it hurts. When the mom finds out that the person who took her son's life used to sleep in the same bed upstairs in the house with her son. Or the mother say, oh, I used to feed this young man, right? And then also, I know in South Philadelphia, we like 7 degrees of separation of everybody being related and knowing one another. It's probably the same thing, right? When you find out that the parents went to the same elementary school, the parents went to the same high school, right? So it gives us a greater responsibility and accountability that when we hear these things going on, right? Because what happens is it's not until we lose a loved one, right, that we begin to step up. But we can't wait. We have to be more proactive. When you hear about these rumors that's going on, or the social media conversations back and forth, you got to step up to the plate. Whatever information that you may hear can save a person's life, and we have to have the intervention component to stop the young men before they pick up the guns. And that's how I also want to be supportive from a conflict resolution standpoint. That doesn't take resources. That takes a level of courage in saying, you know what can we do to get these 2 young men to sit down before? And I also want to ask the faith-based community to get involved in this process. Christian and Muslim, right? Because that's the part of this conversation that we have to have. Because again, if you're going to Juma on Friday, you can't bring your guns inside the masjid. If we having real conversations. Talking about my experience. We're not talking about the councilman. Talking about Kenyatta Johnson that go home in Point Breeze and live like the same neighborhood I always lived in that I grew up in, right? We got to have that real conversation to steer our young men in the right direction. But also, most importantly, a lot of us can get nipped in the bud if we step up to the plate and we resolve the conflicts before they go pick up these guns. And that has nothing to do with government. That just has something to do with us taking a personal responsibility on what's going on inside our neighborhood. So I commend you, bruh, for stepping up to the plate and doing what you're doing. Whatever I can do to be supportive, I will. And I'll follow up with you on what we're doing, the follow-up regarding the homicide clearance rate in City Council.
We're going to do a hearing. Councilperson Gautier. And also, I want to, for the record, acknowledge that Councilperson Sanchez has joined us as well.
Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for your work. I wanted to know your thoughts on how we can better support families who have experienced the trauma of losing a loved one.
Well, Dorothy Spike is a good friend of mine. And I look and see that there's different variations of need. Like, for instance, my daughter need mothers in charge bad as she don't know it. She need mothers in charge. Family members need some closure to the death of the murder of their children. That's a very important one. Because I know what it feels like to have your son murdered and then not even get a phone call from the so-called detectives. And when you call them, you get smoke blown up your rear end, and nobody seems to care about your loved one. So if the police department can have something with inside of their apparatus or their department, at least show some humanity towards those who have lost a loved one. But most importantly, Mothers in Charge and organizations like that definitely is a viable resource. And also with the brothers, that's why I always acknowledge those brothers that works with the Black Male Community Council, because we need soldiers. And I believe that Councilman Johnson made a clear statement. The imams need to ask at the Jumar, give those brothers some marching orders other than just standing on that rug. You could pray 5 times a day, but if your baby's dying around you, what good is your prayers? In the churches, you could go do the crosses all day long. But if your babies is dying around you, what good is it? You have a lot of ideology, but you don't have no works behind it. So they need, even people in the schools of higher learning, brothers, let's come back out in the community. Let's work with Man Up with Solomon Jones. Let's work with Black Men, Unifying Black Men. Let's work with the Fatherhood Rally Committee. Let's come together as black men and do what men's supposed to do. So my question, I hope I'm answering your question. We need black men to come and help and fill this work that need to be done. That would be my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go with Councilman Thomas, and then I'm going to shoot down to Councilperson Brooks.
So first of all, thank you both for your testimony, and sorry for your loss, and anybody in the listening audience who's experienced significant loss. Like Councilman Johnson said, we respect that trauma, and we firsthand have witnessed that trauma as well too. I know I've witnessed it as well too. Jasmine, question though for you. You talked about maps and database. Right now in council, what we're working on is we have a map that essentially shows the schools in the city of Philadelphia that experience the most violence around those schools. So I will make sure that you get a copy of that map. But outside of that map and that database, help us understand what type of maps and database will help you as far as informing you in the work that you need to do, because if we don't have it, we'll go get it.
So specifically, maps that would outline where resources are related to our 5 areas that we provide support. So education, jobs, and help me if I forget anything, Solomon. Education, jobs, family and fatherhood, criminal justice. What's the other one? I already said education. No.
Mental health. Mental health.
I'm drawing such a blank here. No, it's economics. I mean, financial literacy. That's what it is. Financial literacy.
Share that mic if you want.
Financial literacy, education, jobs, criminal justice, family and fatherhood.
Mental health. Drug treatment.
Those are our 5 areas, but they overlap with a lot of the things that you mentioned, the mental health and the other issues. Could I add one other thing too? Also, if there's anyone in the audience who, after hearing testimony coming out or your personal experiences, if you want to get involved, I would encourage you to go to the back of the room after the meeting, and someone from Man Up will be there to take your information and get you connected with action, because at Man Up, we appreciate good conversation and discussions about solutions, but we're about getting to work. And so if you want to join that work, we welcome you.
Come on.
There you go. Thank you. Councilperson Brooks.
Yes, I want to say, thank you so much, Solomon, Jasmine, and Stanley, for all the work that you're doing and all the organizations that are currently just moving on this issue in communities. I have one question about young people, like the babies. I think when Stanley and I first left, it was around murders that happened in my neighborhood, and children were out on the street, and it wasn't like rapid response immediately available for the young people that were around the shooting, and also there aren't resources for rapid response in schools. Does your program have any support for young people that are experiencing trauma, and is that part of your platform as well, like in schools with the younger, because someone mentioned that Councilman Johnson talked about these are young people who used to be friends, but some of these young folks have little brothers and sisters that are being affected by this inside schools, and sometimes they're being overlooked, and it's adding to some of the issues that we see inside school buildings. So do any of your programs have anything or any idea or concept to deal with that in schools?
So I would say right now our focus is on men over 18 and over, as they're the ones most likely to shoot or be shot. But Solomon, correct me if I'm wrong, if there are plans to kind of focus on younger people. We can refer the younger kids to resources.
Were you done? Oh, I'm sorry, we were conferring notes on that dangerous demographic. We took a tour down to the Real-Time Crime Center, and we were having that discussion, and they said that the demographic on the older end went up from 25 to 35, which is baffling. So, anybody else? Councilman Green, thank you for your patience.
Mr. Crawford, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for basically manning up. That's part of the reason why we're here, the work that you're doing on your own and then connecting with Solomon. That's the information that we need. In addition, the unsolved murders that you talked about, and I know also, Dorothy John, despite from Mothers in Charge, also has been compiling information and working with Councilmember Johnson Jones, because this is the information we need to get to our new police commissioner. I'm glad she is here, but as we go through the budget process, we need to be able to ask these questions about how are you addressing these issues, and here's some real information of people who've been dealing with this issue, and you coming into the city of Philadelphia as a new police commissioner, what is going to be your step and approach to address this going forward? So hopefully you'll be able to participate in the hearings that Councilman Johnson's talking about, but also if you aren't available, to even come and participate in our budget hearings, because that's when we allocate resources and we prioritize what's important. So when the commissioner comes, that's why I think this hearing is important, because these are the questions that I'm going to be asking her when she comes to City Council during the budget process and talking about how you're dealing with issues like unsolved murders, because we've been hearing from the Stanley Crawfords and the Dorothy Johnson Spites and others who are saying this is an issue that's not been resolved and what's your plan to address it. So hopefully you'll be able to participate in those things.
Thank you, Councilman.
I just want to say one thing about the unsolved murders. It's very important for the new police commissioner to sit with people like myself. That's right. There's certain things that I didn't say because we're in an open forum. And I didn't say these things, but she need to hear these things, because there's underlying things that is being done with the murderer in the city of Philadelphia, that if she comes in and she don't know these things, then we're gonna be at the same station going on. And I would appreciate it if I'm able to share with her some of the things I was unable to share at this meeting.
So I'm aware of those things, and we're gonna stop sharing on that note, but know this, you ain't the only one. I found out different parts of the city, the same thing is going on. So she does need to know that. Councilperson Gilmore.
Mr. Crawford, I just wanted to thank you for your testimony regarding your son. I am very sorry for your loss. I, too, can identify with a lot of the things that you talked about. Although I'm not a member of the Public Safety Committee, I thought it important to be here this evening because my cousin is number 25, who was murdered this year in the city of Philadelphia on his front steps. And his murder, too, is unsolved. So I just wanted to thank you for your testimony and for your work, but also wanted to talk about a reoccurring theme that I'm hearing at this hearing, and it's around conflict resolution, which is why I've been in conversation with my colleagues, and we intend to push to have conflict resolution in every school in the city of Philadelphia. Young people need to be able to resolve their conflict so that it does not spill over into the community. And I saw it every day as a teacher at Overbrook High School. I saw it in the community working at Winfield Library. We have more to do to help our young people understand how to resolve conflict before it reaches the level of gun violence. So I just wanted to say thank you from one family to another, and we're going to do all we can to advocate on your behalf and on behalf of all the families in the city of Philadelphia who are facing the effects of gun violence in our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilperson. Are there any other questions? Thank you again for your testimony, and thank you all for your patience. Say, would you please read the names of the individuals to testify next?
Michael Smokey Wilson.
Can we also ask Mr. Ellis to come up? I understand. He is next. Is that right?
Yes. In addition to Mr. Michael Wilson, can we have Brian Ellis, Jeff Brown, Akbar Hassan?
Thank you for your patience. State your name for the record and the stenographer, and please begin your testimony.
My name is Michael Smokey Wilson. Good evening.
Good evening.
Can I begin?
Yes, you may.
I heard a lot that was said.
You got to speak to the mic, sir.
I heard a lot that was said, and there's a whole lot could cover, but I'd like to take the time first to mention something concerning an individual that I admire, and I have tried to model his behavior, and I pray God I'll be able to do some of the things that he have done. And what he said was, I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it's for or against. I am a human being, first and foremost, and as such, I am for whomever or whatever benefits humanity as a whole. There have been some things said that's not said, because a lot of the guys who are murdering that's walking around the streets of Philadelphia, our neighbors know who they are, but they're not saying nothing about it. So we use the word snitch. But yet and still we are voters, we are employed, we pay taxes, and we do all those other things, but we don't do our civic duty. So we have, throughout the city of Philadelphia, serial murderers walking around. But another thing that we don't want to talk about is my nephew or my son who's running around with $600,000 or $100,000, or he's sending me on trips and he's buying me all these things and he's doing all these things. We don't talk about those things. And these are the things we need to talk about to change what's going on in our communities. But I'd like to take the time and just read something real briefly, and the next man can say what he have to say, but it's important for us to understand that for us to deal with this problem, right, we got to be real about what is going on in our communities. So I just want to say my name is Michael Smokey Wilson. I am a recent returning citizen. I was released on April 13th, 2017, when the United States Supreme Court passed a doctrine that declared it to be a cruel and unusual punishment to sentence juveniles to mandatory life sentences without parole. I served 46 years, 6 months, and 1 day at Greatest Ford State Penitentiary. Currently, I serve as a senior life coach at the Beckett Life Center in North Central Philadelphia, alongside Executive Director Carol Smith. We are dedicated to creating the first generation of black children who refuse to go to prison by providing trauma-informed care programming and supportive service to the children and their families. I am no stranger to the streets, its lifestyle, and the culture of crime. As a former foster child growing up in the streets of Philadelphia, coming out the house and off the steps, I found myself intrigued and drawn towards the members of neighborhood gangs. I became a member of the Moroccos in North Philadelphia. As a member, I was involved in a shooting in which a 15-year-old boy, Gregory Davis, lost his life. Being convicted of this serious crime and spending time, day in and day out, in the realities of prison caused me to appreciate the impact of the lifestyles that brought me there. The culture of crime is a dangerous phenomenon because sometimes when you are in it, it's difficult to recognize how harmful it is. The streets become your new family. They build a sense of camaraderie, brotherhood, and offer opportunities to establish confidence, conference, and reputations in ways little else can. At the same time, they create chaos, destroy families, and disrupt communal growth in a way that little else but war does. We must understand that in the streets of Philadelphia, I left in 1970, and I was a boy at the time. There's a culture that is real that goes on. And it starts from the generation of the old heads to the seniors, to the juniors, the midget juniors, and it goes all the way down to the squeewees. The little boys that see that guy on the street who wear that nice coat, who rides that nice car, who got the money all the time, and give him a little encouragement what he has to do. It's a mindset, it's a culture. And don't take this the wrong way, nobody. I lived in the Department of Corrections for 47 years. I've seen thousands of guys come through the prison system. We never stopped gang war. Gang war evolved to drug wars. That's what it went to. So we didn't change anything. So as the time went on, the murdering kept going on. You got the boys in the background. I'm 67 years old in about a month. That's pulling strings. So it doesn't matter how I get my money, whether I kill you or I kill you to get my money. People don't want to look at it for what it really is. People don't want to talk about it like what it really is. So while I was in prison, we created programs. I was serving a life sentence. The program we created was called Lessons, LESSONS, Learning Effective Solutions Solving Ongoing Negative Situations, about choices, attitudes, behaviors, and lifestyle, because we know it's a culture. It's a culture of crime that plagues our communities, and to start with our young boys, now more so with our girls, because we had corner girls. See, we got to look at what really was going on and what is really going on, But in saying all that, I thank God Almighty to be sitting here in the Office of Violent Prevention. Shondell Revell and his office took my proposal and gave me a grant, And me and the executive director, Carol Smith, what we did, we took it and we did something with it. But I just want to share this, and this is the last part of it. The culture of crime is a dangerous phenomenon because sometimes when you are in it, it's difficult to recognize how harmful it is. The streets become your new family. For a lot of them young boys, that's how it is. They build a sense of camaraderie, brotherhood, and offer opportunities to establish confidence, commerce, and reputation in ways little else can. At the same time, they create chaos, destroy families, and disrupt communal growth in a way that little else but war does. Community violence is not simple. Community violence is complex. It's easy to question why so many people are dying and killing in the street, and to simplify the issue into a matter of basic personal choice. Only by truly respecting our brothers and sisters' self-determination and by recognizing that their behavior serves a deeper purpose can we hope to truly inspire change in individuals, our families, and our communities. If we truly want to make an impact, we need to recognize how compelling street life is to the youths who are involved in it and give them a viable alternative that is well thought out and backed by political power and real financial resources. We need to remember that the work is most effective when we take time to listen and understand and offer real, viable solutions. It is my hope that organizations like Man Up Philadelphia and Beckett Life Center be able to gain the political and financial support that is critical to the success of combating and eventual eradication of this plague of violence and genocides. And you said something, Mr. Curtis Jones, and I respect you a lot because you came to Grady's Ford and you met me outside and you didn't even know I was serving a life sentence, and we had a conversation and you came back like you said you was and you told us about business, and I got my degree. And And I thank you for that, in business. Because you impressed upon me when I seen you and your partner Al Spivey when y'all walked up in your suits, you know, and you was very nice and kind. You know, like most of us that don't do that. Because you may be a little more educated and you may have did a little more better than the next person. So who's going down into the valley of the shadow of death in these neighborhoods? How many of us can go down and talk to them guys? Not the good kids, not the in-between kids, not the bad kids, but all kids. Talk to all the kids. So we need guys that's on the ground, as Stanley talking about, boots on the ground. We met with 100+ guys from the streets of Philadelphia was old heads at Treasure Saturday. It's time for us to step out and do what we need to do, the old heads, because the young boys going to listen to us. And I'm not talking about no 34-year-old man. I'm talking about as you go down the rank, because it's about rank and protocol. That's how it is. So I'm just sharing with you what I know. I thank Solomon for allowing me to be on this show, to speak out what I have to say. I advocate what the brothers say inside in the penitentiary, because as you well know, there are a lot of phone calls, and I repeat, a lot of phone calls come from the Department of Correction to the streets. And them guys got the influence over those guys. And if they listen to us and we listen to them, we can do something to combat this problem in our city. So I'm finished, sir.
So it's called credible messengers. And we have to do it. We up here, you know, the more we spend time in City Hall, the more we becomes pictures on a wall, suits to people. Credible messengers that can interpret what resources are available to take it right to the what did you say? The valley of the shadow of death. It's in the Bible. I know I read the Bible. Thank you so much, Smokey. Thank you so much. State your name.
Yeah, man.
I'm with you too. I'm just going to hang over here.
All right, perfect.
Councilman. All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dr. Brian Ellis. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm a community member. In fact, I'm a product of the Philadelphia Public Schools, and I'm a kid who grew up in West Philly. My research is in marginalized populations, social movements, and student identity. Before I get started, I would like to take the opportunity to recognize publicly Jonathan Lane. He's a student of mine at Drexel University. He's a member of Man Up PHL as a volunteer, and he's also serving to help the group develop a website and work on some metrics for the organization. I decided to join and serve as advisory board member for Man Up PHL to be part of the solutions. Solomon made a call, and I answered. What resonated the most with me is that I've been fortunate enough to leverage family, mentorship, community throughout my academic and professional careers, and I'd like to extend that opportunity to others. We are a new organization, but a powerful one. We are an organization that is built on a strong foundation, committed by many volunteers. This foundation and structure will allow us to be sustainable and effective. I like to take this time to thank all of the volunteers that represent all corners of the city. As chair for Man Up PHL, I plan to work closely with other members of the advisory board, the executive director, Solomon Jones, and our leadership team, and our volunteers to develop strategy, spark relationships, and create partnerships throughout the city. This will allow for sustainability.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions? Give them a round of applause. It's appropriate down. It's appropriate. Any questions? Remember, I don't have lights. Seeing none, please state your name and begin your testimony.
My name is Akbar Hassan. I'm on the advisory board of Man Up, and good evening.
Good evening.
Frederick Douglass once said, and I quote, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." I'm happy to say we as a society and community are succeeding in building mentally strong, intelligent, future-focused black men. Numerous black men are opening their own businesses, learning science, technology, and other valuable skills and trades, ensuring that their family, their children, and their children's children inherit a long, proud legacy. But, regretfully, in the same breath, I must say, we as a society are also failing at building strong black men. We are failing during the transformative foundation building years of their youth. Children that should be learning and growing into responsible citizens are, mostly through no fault of their own, finding their way down a dark path, led away by terrible outside influences and failure to build their strong foundation. That failure, whatever the cause, has manifested itself into a city in crisis mode. A city that not only includes broken youth and broken young men, but a city where the broken are killing off the strong. A city where children and young adults with hope, talent, dreams, and goals are being snuffed out. Their talent, goals, and legacy now buried, never to be realized. We now have the difficult job of repairing. We all know if something is broken and you do not repair it, it gets worse. I cannot imagine worse. I don't want to imagine worse. But if we do not focus additional resources towards this problem, worse will be upon us. Numerous anti-violence groups are doing great work. They should be applauded. More is needed, and it needs to be sustained, multi-pronged. It needs to include better clearance rates, constant awareness, and transforming those at risk into positive, productive members of society. Increased resources are needed so that our men can help other men become better men. With that, I end my testimony.
Thank you so much. Chair recognizes Councilperson Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hassan, thank you for your testimony. I know you provide a lot of information regarding financial literacy. From your involvement in Man Up PHL, what are some of the challenges that you see that some of the people that are coming to the program have in regards to financial literacy in order to help them with their empowerment?
I think that they are all hungry for financial literacy. I think learning about finances is easy. I think people are frightened because the jargon we hear out in the world is confusing. But when you break it down to the bottom level, it's just keeping a budget and following it, keeping a plan. When we teach and train some of the mentees of Man Up, I try to tell them, whether you earn $5 or $5 million, you can lose it in a second, right? We know millions of people who have squandered their wealth over nothing. So we can find all the jobs we want for all the mentees, but if we don't teach financial literacy, it's all squandered. So that's why it's a very important component of Man Up, and I'm very happy that it's coming back into schools, and I'm very happy that other organizations are starting to do the same.
I just also want to follow up, because I know there's been a lot of conversation regarding jobs, but also I'm curious in reference to what focus on entrepreneurship, because that's one of the things that has been lacking from my observation, having started my career as a small business lender with Meridian Bank and Broad and Glenwood, not enough focus on entrepreneurship, especially for our young people. And so how has that entrepreneurship concept been infused in Man Up?
Well, what we are going to do is take it by case. All right, so we can't push entrepreneurship on everyone. But once we encounter a mentor, or mentee rather, that is interested in entrepreneurship, then we take them down that road. Everything isn't for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. Anyone else? Yes? No? One of the things about entrepreneurship, if you can't find a job, create one.
Absolutely.
And that's the way we actually should be proceeding. A friend of mine way back talked about putting addresses on curbs for $10 a house. If you have 100 houses on a block, 50% success rate, that ain't a bad day. So something to think about. So thank you both for your testimony.
Jeff Brown.
Still, wait a minute. No one heard you.
Jeff Brown.
There you go. Huh?
Good evening.
Yeah. Can we get the next two people as well?
Can we have Joel Wilson B.G. Adif and Robert Crowder.
Thank you, sir. State your name for the record. Thank you for your patience. Begin your testimony.
Thank you. And good evening, everybody, to the council members, and I see a lot of friends and clients of mine in the audience. My name is Jeff Brown, and for those who may not know me, I run a company called Brown Superstores that operates ShopRite and Fresh Grocer supermarkets in the Philadelphia area. I've come to appreciate Solomon because there's a lot of people that are really passionate, and that's really important. But if we really want to make change, we need an organized, methodical mind who can build a team and put a system in place to effectuate change. And I think Solomon is that person. He's very, very smart. He has a good platform. He's very organized, and you could see the team he's starting to put together. Some of my fellow colleagues in Man Up PHL, people that have particular expertise to make this thing something different than just passion, but to organize it to make a difference. The gun violence problem over the years that has gotten steadily worse is really frightening. And I don't think there's a neighborhood in the city that doesn't experience some amount of it, and places I do business really are getting hit with the brunt of it. And I have to tell you my own personal experience, we have a procedure for what we do when one of our employees or their family members have been shot, and a businessman shouldn't have to have a procedure for that. So this is a problem that I know it's personal to a lot of the council people. It's super personal to the people in this room, but it's even personal to me. People that I know, people that I've worked so hard to develop, young men of color, unintentionally get gunned down on their way home from work. That's not something we should have to deal with. But like I said, the best I could do as a businessman, as a person who's organized large philanthropic efforts, is to use what I know how to do, bring it to the table to help this effort. And I believe that this is an important effort because in my experience of dealing with people that have changed their lives, and you know in my company we have 700 returning citizens working for us. In the nonprofit I founded, Uplift, we've graduated 500 returning citizens that work for various companies, including some impressive names like Aetna, US Healthcare, where we're training health navigators. And every one of those people that are successful, many of which have become managers, is a young person that's facing that choice. Often they're in jail because they made the wrong choice. And when they come out of jail, I'm finding there's not that much brain power or effort that's necessary to teach them the right choice. It's not that complicated. And when they leave prison and we have a chance to help them think about what a successful human does, how they think, how they interact with others, our program at Uplift is 6 weeks. The program that Man Up PHL has is 12 weeks, but 12 weeks one time a week. So we're not talking about a lifetime of knowledge. We're talking about a relatively reasonable amount of knowledge that's not hugely expensive. If you think about it, every homicide cost our city, besides the loved one who died and the grief and the ripple effect through families, think about the money that it costs every homicide. And aren't we willing to spend some of that money to not have a homicide? I've worked with Solomon before. When Solomon called me, we immediately got on this because there really isn't something like this in the city. You talked about other nonprofit efforts. There's a lot of nonprofits in the city, not like this. So we set up 4 outposts, 4 different parts of the city, 3 of them in my supermarkets in different sections of the city, so they could be there without a cost. That makes us sustainable. And it's mostly all volunteers, which reduce the cost, because the idea is we want the maximum impact at a reduced cost so we could sustain this thing. And we want it to be open, so anyone could roll in having a bad day and talk to us about their problems. Now, in my life, besides my grocery work, I'm involved in other nonprofits, like Isaiah Thomas mentioned, PIN, Philadelphia Youth Network. Philadelphia Youth Network is a great resource. They're not perfect, but they're a great resource. They receive 18 to 19,000 summer job applications a year, but only have money to place 8,000 people. It means 10,000 kids don't want to be on the street arguing with people, they want to be working. But the resources have not existed to put them to work. Many other efforts I have are like that. They're underfunded, they're proven strategies that can fix this problem, but we're spending our money on police and DAs and prisons instead of helping these young people. And so I just want to say that I am with this effort. It didn't take me long to accept Solomon's request, and we're taking it very seriously. Solomon calls me many, many times a day to orchestrate what we need to orchestrate, and I am available for this and the other efforts to address our poverty problem in this city and our homicide problem. Thank you.
All right. 1/3 of the city's budget is spent on public safety. So you can save all the paper clips you want until you address those core issues. We will not reduce taxpayers' money expense on this. So, any questions? Councilperson Gardier.
Earlier today, many of us council members were invited to a luncheon that the Chamber of Commerce hosts for the mayor on an annual basis. And just hearing you talk about your company's efforts to hire returning citizens, hearing about your involvement in Man Up PHL, I'm wondering, what would you say to a room like that full of business owners about how they should be getting involved in the gun violence crisis in our neighborhoods?
I really appreciate the question, and I think I'm in the best position to tell another CEO that he needs to open up his mind a little bit. And I have done that many times, not always successful, but sometimes successful. And what I would explain to him is I've been hiring returning citizens for over 15 years, and literally I've hired thousands of them. And I have a body of knowledge about whether they're permanently broken or whether they're just people that need a little guidance. And I can tell you that our recidivism rate, once they work for us, is only 2%, which means 98% were born good people that are good people, need a little guidance to get on the right track, a little know-how. I mean, literally, when I meet with them, I'm barraged with very basic questions on how to operate your life that they didn't learn it in school, and unfortunately, their house wasn't able to help them with that, and they just don't know how to operate their life. And with a little guidance, they really can overcome a lot of their challenges. The second thing is, I have the fortune of comparing my returning citizen employees to the general population, people that have never been in criminal justice. And interestingly enough, I have some hard to believe observations. One is, one of the things that might lead a person to a bad decision is ambition. But ambition could be a good thing too. And so what I found among our returning citizen employees, they're highly ambitious. They fight to learn everything and get ahead to a much bigger degree than the general population. They're not willing to stay home and settle for welfare. They want to get ahead. And so what they lacked was guidance on how you do that the right way. And so what I explained to them, when you look at things like turnover, much less among the formerly incarcerated. When you look at the seriousness to get ahead or the advancement, much higher among returning citizens, because they've been to jail, they tried that, they don't want to go back to that, they got families like all of us, they just want a way to take care of their family. And I tell CEOs that constantly around the country, and we just filmed a PBS special to go into this in much greater depth, to try to educate people that just don't know. And that's the CEOs, they just don't know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Housekeeping, Joe. The church wants us out of here by 8:30. I've been kicked out of a lot of places. Never a church, so. And Jeff, thank you. Also, you didn't mention all of the gun buyback programs that you sponsored, which I appreciate.
Yeah, academically, some people don't know if gun buybacks reduce crime. But I had the sense that we were doing the right thing. And over my lifetime, I funded roughly 1,000 gun buybacks. And in the last couple of years, the resources have dried up and we haven't been able to do that. But if you're looking for something that I think is important to keep doing is gun buybacks. And I would love to work with you with MAN PHL to organize gun buybacks throughout the city on a calendar, set up a budget for it, and do it regularly because, I'm sorry, it was 10,000 guns, not 1,000, 10,000. I'd like to buy the next 10,000 guns. If we save 10 homicides, I'd be for that.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Joel? Thank you for your patience.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Joel Wilson. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. Came out of University of Maryland College Park in '92 with a computer science degree and also an emphasis in African studies, African American studies. So, I actually reached out to one of my clients, Mercy Douglas, to get the fourth site that we use in West Philadelphia, Mercy Douglas Residence, 4511 Walnut Street. So through that is where we hold the Man Up classes in West Philly. I'm the founder of Tech Core 2, which is a tech coding STEM program. We're now in our 6th year. We run Saturday classes both in the spring and the fall. We now have 2 sites. We have one in University City, and we're new in Mount Airy at the McCluskey School. In the summertime, we run a massive internship program. I remember the question Councilman Thomas asked earlier. So we not only employ high school students, paying them through that same Work Ready program. Last summer, I employed 9 college students, and we've been doing this since 2015. Now, I have a plan to scale that up. We could scale it up to almost any number you want. It's a matter of funding. And I am familiar with the PYN grant that comes out. There are some technical issues. I don't want to go into details now, but some of that, it is not, if you're a smaller nonprofit, budget of $100,000 and less, it is too demanding to ask someone to have audited financials. You cannot afford that. I'm also the current president of the 100 Black Men of Philadelphia. For those that don't know, 100 Black Men is primarily a mentorship program founded in 1963. We deal with tutoring, we deal with professional development, we deal with getting folks scholarships to go to college. We even now have our own scholarship to Drake Law School. So if you finish up college, you don't even really need the 4.0, you can come in substantially less and go to law school. So we are doing programs right now every first and third Saturday in Philly at the Temple Learning Annex, 24th in Allegheny. We have a 4-hour program and it is totally free. Currently we have about 40 youth enrolled and we have a capacity of 80. So we are already ready to accept more kids, and again, it is free. One of the programs we do through the 100 Black Men is on Sunday, March 8th, we're having our annual African American History Challenge. Our students are reading 100 Amazing Facts of the Negro, originally written by Joel A. Rogers. It has been revised by Dr. Henry Louis Gates, and our students are studying that. They have opportunities to win computers, cash, and several of them will go to our nationals in Atlanta. So we already have programs that are going to get the young people involved and encouraged. Another big thing 100 does, we have over 5 financial literacy programs that we offer, coming from State Farms, coming from Ally Bank, coming from Wells Fargo. So this stuff is already in the pipeline, we're already doing it. So, what has brought me to Man Up? When I looked at what helped me to become successful? I was an AFNA student. I was a Prime student. AFNA helped me in getting into career. Prime helped me into engineering. I looked at the pipeline now and I see these young folks, they do not have mentoring and they do not have opportunities and resources so that they can be successful. So they can get pulled into that negative culture of gun violence and things like that. And so we need programs to intervene early on. We need to capture these folks literally by the time they're in 3rd grade. Because we all know if you are not passing that PSSA exam, chances are you're going to go down that wrong path. So through Man Up has paired together all these organizations that have the capacity to do this work. What is needed is the financial resource and some of the political clout that's going to allow these doors to be open. So we already have frameworks that can be scaled up. They need funding. You know, in literally a meeting at Uncle Bobby's, Solomon and I put together what has become Man Up Philadelphia. And the only thing that it doesn't have the financial resources that Councilman Kenyatta Johnson so eloquently spoke to. The funds are there. So if we are really feeling this pain and we're seeing it every day, I noticed back in 2017 that when we run our coding programs, every instance we have at least one young person that was impacted by somebody being killed. And this is in my coding program. And then this last go round, young Solomon Jones' son, he's one of our students. And I got the notice that his friend was killed. So this is just devastating, and it makes no sense. We have the resources, we have the skills, we have just a great assortment of folks that can handle this problem. What we need is the necessary votes to give us the money to fully fund Man Up and make this solution a reality. So, well, I'm gonna let them decide on what that number is gonna be. I just know that the money is there. And so I'm just pleading as a Philadelphian, someone who is, I'm committed. I'm doing multiple things, as you can see in the city. I'm committed to Man Up. Let's just make this happen. Let's not make this just another talking event. And on that, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Joel, for your testimony. All right, we have exactly 10 minutes. Can we get as many? If you feel really compelled to say something, let's start calling up names.
BG Adif.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's just what we have you listed as. Robert Crowder, Coleman Holmes, George Seffs, Arnold Jones, and Dorothy Johnson.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So can we abbreviate and get to the good stuff?
That's fine. I am BG Graves. I am a member of Man Up PHL, and I'm one of the volunteers. So in order to allow other people to talk, you guys can ask questions after Brother Rob introduces himself.
Okay, my name is Robert Crowder. I'm also a volunteer mentor with Man Up PHL. And what I wanted to briefly talk about was just a couple of the meetings we had and the men that we were able to meet during the mentorship. There's a recurring theme amongst all these young men, and one is the lack of parenting, missing fathers in the household, and the lack of love and finances in the household. And it's a recurring thing that I believe everyone in here is familiar with. But the one thing that's positive about a lot of these young men was they were intelligents. They were very smart young men, and when we opened up the floor to them and allowed them to express to us the things they needed, you could see them brighten up because they saw the love that was in the room. So I'm not going to belabor this any longer. I had some other stuff I want to talk about, but because we're short, I'm going to let BG say what he needs to say.
But I want to say to you, thank you. Because, you may be fathers, have children of your own. You are sacrificing some of that for the community, and we really appreciate that. If I had a silver bullet, the one and only one, it would be that fathers would be fathers and spend that time with their kids. So I am truly appreciative. Any questions? Thank you so very much. So what we got? Liz?
Coleman Holmes, George Seffs, and Arnold Jones.
Okay, you want to do part two? Part two. All right, so that you know, because of this overwhelming response, there will be a part two. There's too much good information to leave on the floor. So, thank you for your patience. Please pull the mic to you.
Thank
State
you.
your
Good
name for the
evening,
record.
council members. Thank you for convening this hearing. Kudos to my brother Solomon and all the men of Man Up PHL. I wanted 2 minutes to add the real component to this. It's one component when we talk about training. My name is Paula Peebles. I'm the chair of the National Action Network, born and bred in North Philadelphia. NP. All right, so let me say this. We hear about training, we hear people saying fund my program, etc. All that's good. Unless we deal with guns, just like the drugs, where the guns are coming into our children's hands, where they're coming from, it's not going to change. And that means that city council members, as a government entity, is going to have to get courage in heart and call the police to the carpet. And you're probably saying, Paula, why are you saying that? Let me tell you why. National Action Network in Philadelphia have a crisis department. We've been notified because there's a matter that we're dealing with where a young man brought a gun with a silencer from a police officer's son. Okay? When it came time to pay for the gun, he didn't have all the money. So the police officer's son went back and told his daddy. And now the police has a bounty on this child's head. What? Okay, that's right. The police, just like some of the veterans coming back, nothing against veterans. My dad was a veteran of Korean War. I have people in my family are police officers. We're going to keep it real. We got to keep it real. We cannot be afraid of the police and to bring them in. Some of them, I'm not doing a blanket about police. I would never do that. I'm saying they're bad police, just like they're racist, white supremacist, Nazi police in the police department are selling guns to our children who are in turn taking those guns and killing our children. My nephew was killed on July 5th. And I'm real mad about that. It's not that I've been involved all my life. I was a part of the baddest organization that ever came out the bowels of America, which is the Black Panther Party. So I have nothing to do with that. What I'm saying is we can't just talk about the programs and getting jobs because we can't pull our young boys like that. We're going to have to be able to stop, close, remove the cancer. See, people think it's a sore. When we talk about programs, we talking about it from a perspective of a sore. It's a cancer in our community. Last night on ABC, I saw the white gentrifiers of South Philadelphia, your district, Kenyatta, crying about crime. You know what I said? Well, welcome to Philadelphia. You thought when you built your nice house, okay, your $500,000, $1 million house, it was somehow going to insulate you from the crime that we experience. That doesn't happen. So I welcome counsel, but you got to get real, which means we got to talk to Chief Outlaw, and we welcome the sister, but she's going to have to line her soldiers up, start investigating them for what they're perpetuating in this city, and that's the sale of guns. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is George Cephas. I am a transformation coach, a father of two. I just recently founded my nonprofit that is called Survival to Success, that is geared towards providing communities with opportunities for healing, learning, and growing. I want to thank Mr. Solomon for bringing this together. I had the opportunity to go to all 4 different locations and meet so many different amazing men who are doing amazing work in our community. And the reason why I created my program is because I realized that our community is in survival mode. In a sense where we are in survival mode mentally, emotionally, and financially. And so my program, I wanted to get into different high schools, but what I noticed is that these students are disengaged in the classroom. You cannot come in and talk about financial literacy when these students are dealing with so much different trauma that's going on at home. And so my program helps students to, number one, identify trauma, the effects that it's had on them, how to heal and grow from it. Secondly, it helps them to identify trauma within their community. And then it also helps them to identify their passions. And they do that by number one, either a problem that they've experienced that they want to be a solution to, or some type of coping skill that they want to bring to their community that's helped them to cope with the things that they've been through. And then lastly, then we focus on financial literacy and entrepreneurship. But my biggest struggle so far has been trying to get my program into school. It seems as if just because I don't have a 501c3, I don't have $900 to pay for a 501c3, or because I only have my bachelor's degree, that these schools and that, are not interested in my program. I actually went to about 4 different council people offices to get assistance, but led to dead ends. And so I lost my job back in November 6th, and I decided that I was going to take this full time and be dedicated to my community and to my passion and to my mission. And so point being is that I'm available to be in schools, and the program also helps take those students that go through the program and helps them to come back and do the same program at different schools to help it grow and become a larger thing. But I imagine it's doing this on a larger scale, not just in schools, but also in the communities, because I find that it's really important to have people out there sharing their stories and things that they've been through.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. This will be the last, but the last shall be first on that list when we do part 2, and that was in the Bible. Last shall be first.
Twice in one night, Councilman.
Shukran.
Good evening, council members and my fellow citizens. I'm Coleman Holmes, chair of the Community Outreach Committee of the Delaware Valley Association of Black Psychologists. On behalf of our president, Dr. Aya Maria Gooding, and our regional representative, Dr. Fariki Iman, I'm here in support of the much-needed work of the Man Up PHL organization and its founder, Solomon Jones. We applaud Man Up's challenge to black men to step up in a team effort to stop the gun violence and the accompanying emotional terrorizing trauma, which is retarding our community's development. We pledge our support to Man Up, our support of Man Up's focus on mentoring, educational development, employment opportunities, family and fatherhood, financial literacy, and helping the victims of an unjust criminal justice system. On a personal note, I've attended most of Man Up's mentor training workshops and weekly community outreach sessions in North Philadelphia. I've participated as a mentor, volunteer mentor, and as an advocate for young brothers experiencing difficulty with the criminal justice system, our obstacle-filled education system, and our city's employment maze, which is too often stacked against our young men. I see weekly the positive differences in the lives of young men, which can be made by committed, knowledgeable, and life-experienced men from our community. We must remember that this crisis has been 400 years plus in the making. The overwhelming majority of our people have never experienced the benefits of true emancipation and unencumbered equal citizenship in this land. To the contrary, so-called emancipation brought the onslaught of traumatizing physical and dehumanizing emotional violence from the majority population. The truth sometimes hurts, but it must be said. Today's police brutality, stop and frisk, school-to-prison pipeline, medical Jim Crowism, employment discrimination, electronic media promotion of race and self-esteem, destroying colorism, and I'd love to explore that later. National government's encouragement of the resurgence of white nationalism and other forms of institutionalized racism and are blatant reminders of the challenges we still face. Federal, state, and city government laws and enforcement policies created and continue to create African American community impoverishment, race esteem and self-esteem destroying miseducation, and intentionally constructed barriers to our healthy economic development and generational wealth accumulation. Too many of us now unwittingly assist with our own destruction due to psychological and social forces in today's American culture that encourage selfishness, hedonism, ineffective quick fixes, and a sense of hopelessness that often comes from a lack of historical perspective and abandonment of true spirituality. The historical resilience of the African American community and our ingenious responses to seemingly insurmountable challenges will see us through this crisis. But we must continue to put our heads together, planning and executing effectively in the spirit of our ancestors who overcame far worse circumstances than what we are facing today. We must remind each other daily that we are all in this together. We can and will return to the interdependence that marks the success of all peoples on this earth. Black people have existed upon this earth for hundreds of thousands of years, long before others, and we have established the first civilizations known to man. We taught the world science, medicine, spirituality, agriculture, architecture, and the love and compassion necessary to be true humans on this earth. We must see this 400-year horror as the blink of an eye in our existence. Once again, we congratulate Man Up PHL and its founder, Solomon Jones, for bringing us together citywide with this comprehensive plan. On behalf of the Delaware Valley Association of Black Psychologists, please give us feedback on our website, dvabsci.org, @gmail.com. And I speak on behalf of our president, Dr. Io Maria Gooden, PhD, Dr. Janice Hoppy-Wills, EDD, and Dr. Farouk Imam, PhD, Eastern Regional Representative and Publications Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. So you will be our last person to testify, and then we'll hear from the author of this resolution.
Yes,
Please
sir.
state your name for the record.
My name is Jan McKay. 30 seconds. If it was a sniper running around in Philadelphia killing people, nobody would be allowed to be outside. We need to shut down our schools for 2 weeks and teach the children like we are teaching the teachers right now, trauma-informed care, that will equip them and have an instant impact on them jump-starting their healing process. The second week will be group. We will run group therapy across the city. If you take one kid out of class and give them therapy and then put them back in the class where everybody else doesn't have the same coping skills, don't have the same knowledge, it's just going to keep backfiring. But if we shut down our city, and every single day I work at a school, we got the opportunity to reach every family through our school district. We got the opportunity to reach every family. So we shut down our city for 2 weeks, not even really shutting it down, but make every school focus on becoming trauma-informed, all the students, and providing them with the coping skills and jumpstarting their healing process. And after that 2 weeks, continuing group for the next 12 years. In 12 years, we won't have no crime in our city.
Thank you, brother. Gilmore, that's in addition to what you were talking about.
They wanted me to mention one thing before we left. Our volunteer coordinator, Jasmine Slay, keeps us on point. Go to manupPHL.org for more information on what we do. manupPHL.org.
All right.
Council, thank you so much.
All right, wait a minute. He's got parting words for you.
So real quick, I just want to thank Solomon Jones for his leadership in getting more of us men to man up. I want to thank all the people that are here. They're able to come out for this hearing. As the chair said, we're going to have another hearing. So for those of you who signed up and were not able to testify, please come see me so that way I can get your name and contact information. In addition, as I said earlier, we invited Commissioner Outlaw. Hopefully when we have a second hearing also in the community, we'll see if we can get her to come to the hearing so you can hear from the community as well. So I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank my colleagues for their participation. And thank you for all the work, and we'll continue this work as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And to note, the sheriff stayed the whole time. So this hearing on this resolution will be called to recess and called back to the call of the chair. This concludes the business of the Public Safety Committee of City Council today. Thank you all for your attendance.